Jeez.
Well, should we get started?
Yeah, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. So I want to welcome everybody to episode 6 of the Adaptable Business. This is pretty cool. I want to welcome Josh Funk, who owns Rehab to Perform right out in Maryland, where I'm from, my neck of the woods. How many locations do you guys have now, Josh?
We have 4, and then actually we did sign on a 5th one right before this whole thing happened. So that'll be interesting to see how things go as the next few months unroll. But we've had some early conversations there about making sure that we're able to be in a position to be successful over the long haul. Landlord's been very understanding.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Everybody else that we've had on here so far has already been in kind of the telehealth space and online, but you're the first person we brought on that has a brick and mortar. So I really want to kind of start with the brick and mortar portion of it. There are people that want to start a brick and mortar business and own a clinic. So let's kind of take it back. When you decided to start Rehab to Perform, what did you see when you were going through school? What area did you want to get into, and how did you come up with this entire vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, a big thing it's my roots in athletics. Just growing up, grew up in one of the families where, different season, different sport. We were just told to choose something. It's fall, what do you plan? It's winter, what do you plan? So I think physical activity and physicality was really just part of our family culture growing up. And then being able to play lacrosse at Ohio State for the first time in my life, having a severe injury my sophomore year, having my identity, right? My physicality, my physical ability completely taken away from me. Being in an environment at Ohio State was very, very unique from a rehabilitation standpoint, what we had access to from a strength and conditioning side of things, the people, the facilities, all very, very unique. And never really seeing something that allowed me to have even the same environment. I remember being in college and having people just enjoy going to the training room. It was cool to go in. You go in before practice, you get your PT, you got the ATCs, you got the strength coaches walking in, and it was enjoyable. And then looking at PT out in the commercial world, and it's a grudge purchase. It's something that people don't like going to. So for me, it really, really started out with just the psychology of what PT was. And what it meant to people, and how could we at least change their thought process in terms of how PT looked and was delivered to them. I had seen a couple higher end places that looked a little bit like my experience at Ohio State, and early influences, Mark Verstegen, Athletes Performance, before transitioning into Exos. They were doing that on a big model, but I didn't see that appealing to the masses. Wanting to do something that was influential and being able to impact the masses was something that I always had in mind. So, I got to a point where I graduated, I went to Maryland for graduate school, knowing that I was not in a position yet to open a business. I chose to work for 2 of the better private practice owners in our area. I worked for Jamie Schreier, who now runs the Practice Freedom Method. He's a consultant, sold 2 of his locations. And then you may or may not know him, but Brian Tuckey, it's more in the world of the strain counter strain, and we can kind of look at that as how we want. He runs a much more hands-on clinic than I would necessarily agree with, but at the end of the day, he runs a good business. So spending time at each of those 2 places, going through personal training certifications while I was in graduate school, doing small group sports performance training while I was an early PT, and then eventually getting to a point where I had developed what I would call the 3 C's. So social capital, intellectual capital, and financial capital, ideally having what I thought was at least enough for me to take a chance on myself, having a friendship from somebody who went to University of Maryland with me, Zach Baker, and convincing him, hey, Zach, I got this crazy idea. This company's going to be called Rehab to Perform. I know you're not necessarily happy with where you want to be. I know you just had a baby, but hey, I'll guarantee your first 3 months of your salary, which I did. I literally handed him 3 checks, December, January, and February. And I said, hey, there's enough money in the bank for you to be paid for the first 3 months. Kind of went a little bit on a whim. Not going to say everything was perfect, I'm not going to say that his wife, Britt, wasn't incredibly understanding and didn't also question what was going on during that given time. But here we are. I mean, Zach's been my right-hand man ever since we started. Been incredibly fortunate to have some amazing people jump on board. And just, I'm going to run the risk of leaving people out. But when you have people like a Jared Boyd come on, and he's your next PT at the office, and having your first intern be Anthony Anarino, somebody who'd been a college strength coach, a Bill Hartman protege. He's been just tremendous for us. And I would say then Caleb and Jamie are probably the other two people that I would put into the mix there as kind of some of our early people. The only other person I would say in that early core group would be Karen Farrar, and nobody's ever heard of her because she spent some time with us. She was with us for, I think, almost 2 years, and then wanted to start a family with her significant other. She jumped into home health. So the only two people that we've actually lost, with the exception of, unfortunately, the current furlough, and I still view it as temporary, are Karen and Jared. Jared off to the Memphis Grizzlies, and then Karen off to home health. So, we've been very fortunate to recruit and retain high-level clinicians. And I know we're going to talk about this more and more, but I can't emphasize it enough. Like, Rehab to Perform wouldn't be what it is without the people.
Absolutely. I think personal development for your staff is something huge that we are going to touch on a little bit later. But we did get a question that came through the chat that runs right into the question that I had next. They asked, can you share some strategies you employ to stay on task, get things done, and continue building? And my point to that was you were ranked as the 57th fastest growing business in the DC metro area, regardless of industry, which is, I mean, I live in this area. That's a big statement. To have a PT clinic or any service in healthcare growing that fast is a statement. So how did you go about your build and creating the business that you have now with that vision?
I think the biggest thing, honestly, that we're very fortunate about now is it was all centered on community. Right from the get-go, I looked at medical as being extremely, we've heard the word silo before, but you have medical community and people, no matter how good they are, function in their silo and they say, hey, look at me. I'm an expert. I'm so good. Shouldn't everybody come to me? But they're not doing anything to get outside of their four walls, to interact with the community, to really show that they care about them, other than the fact that they want people to know how good they are. So we went after 5 separate arms, and for us, it's our medical arm, fitness, business, youth sports, and schools. And we had different initiatives in each of those 5 different areas that really have allowed us, and infiltration was one of the words of the year for us at one point. And we want to infiltrate the community. We want to be literally as synonymous with any other business when people say, what are the top 10 businesses that you can think of in the area? When I talk about just the medical area, how do we become synonymous with clinical excellence, maybe in the same conversation as some of the big hospitals, med stars around here, Shady Grove Hospital, you have your Montgomery General, you've got some of the hospitals up in Baltimore. I mean, there's a lot of tremendous medical institutions. So how do we have a place at that table as quickly as possible? And it was becoming well known. And the only way that you can become well known is ideally putting yourself in a situation where you are developing meaningful relationships. Your value and what you are doing on a regular basis goes far beyond the service that you are providing. People, right? What is the saying right now? And I'm sorry, I'm forgetting what it is, but it's something like people don't want to know what you know, they just want to know how much you care. And I think we have a community-facing business that is truly immersed in all of these different touch points in the community. So it allows us to be impactful. It allows us to be successful. So when we go into somewhere like Bethesda, we know our initiatives in each of those 5 different areas, and it allows us to kind of trickle down and seep into those 5 different areas in a certain square mile radius outside of that location.
That's really interesting. You ever read the book, The E-Myth?
I have. E-Myth Revisited? Yes. It is.
I've read it. I've read through it a couple times, and it's that technician mindset.
Yep.
Most people start a business, and I'm really good at this, and that's great. And you just do the work and do the work and do the work. But the mindset you're talking about is that real entrepreneurial, get out into the community. You need to tell people that you're good at this thing, and you need to have them look at that shirt, that R2P, and know what it means. Everybody knows what the Johns Hopkins Blue Jay is in this area.
Yep.
Right? It's synonymous. The blue and gold for MedStar, we know that.
Yep.
University of Maryland healthcare system, we know those things. We want our brand, Rehab to Perform, ClinicalAthlete, whatever it is, to have that same kind of connotation. So that's really important, because you do have to insert yourself into the community.
Yeah, it's social capital.
Community in this area.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
How do you put yourself out there and make sure that your company, you're creating local celebrity at the end of the day. You have to create some kind of local celebrity where people are thinking of you on a regular basis. You know, what do you do? Where do you offer it? Right? And what problems do you solve for people? Once you get out in front of people enough and you get to know them on a truly like deeper, authentic level, they're naturally going to think of you more. But they don't want to hear about how good you are all the time, and they aren't just going to go seek you out. The people that are seeking them out to develop relationships, that's usually who they're going to think about more often. And that's where I think, honestly, and I challenge everybody, especially some of the young clinicians out there, disrupt the usual. I mean, I'm sitting here in our Bethesda office, and we're next to a massive Pops place, literally right next to us. I can almost see their door. Okay? And I'm going to guarantee that not a single one of the people that works in there is probably going outside and interacting with anybody. It is a punch in, 9 to 5, punch out, done. Look at us. We're so great. We've been around for 30 years. Come see us for service. That's not going to work in the businesses of the future. So for the young people out there, they're really trying to make an impact. How can you improve your social capital?
And this goes to another question that came up in the chat. They want you to expand a little bit on those 5 arms and the best way you found to actually infiltrate. And I wanted to dive into a little bit of that statement, infiltration. Beyond just doing a good job. That's one thing I hear a lot. Like, if you just do a good job, people will find you. And that doesn't necessarily tend to hold up. So when you guys looked at those 5 arms and you identified the 5 places that you wanted to infiltrate, what did infiltration look like? How did you guys strategize that? Was it just community outreach? Did you do, events? Like, how did you guys go about that?
Absolutely. And, I will do my best to go through maybe one area in each of those 5. So let's take schools, for example. Internships are extremely important. Shadowing, very, very important. There are sports medicine classes that people are offering. Over at Kennedy High School over here is the Academy of Health Professions. There are all of these different opportunities for you to go get in front of high school kids that potentially are going to shadow or intern at your place. They could end up being consumers of your place because they're probably going to tell mom and dad where they're going to shadow or where they're going to intern. You have teachers who you're going to be able to interact with during your time periods there. So it's kind of like all of these different touch points just surrounding one initiative. Go speak at your local high schools. Then if you include career days, that's a whole nother opportunity. You're interacting with other professionals that are not in your industry but care enough to carve time out of their day to go do something for the community. So you're automatically finding people that value the same thing as you do. So that's a networking opportunity in itself. But that's just one of those 5. Then if we get into youth sports, how can you interact with coaches? How can you interact with directors for local youth sports organizations, club sports organizations? How can you bring them into your facility? How can you go to them? Usually some kind of value add. Something not just one time and transactional, but ideally something recurrent. Then if we get into the fitness industry, very much same thing. How do they get to trial things? How do they have a better understanding before whatever it is that you're trying to offer them? How can you include them as a part of your in-services? We have Tuesday, 12 o'clock in-services. We'll pull people from the local community. Hey, we want to learn with you, but hey, we also want to develop a relationship with you. Then we'll go to their place, potentially do something for them. We'll go to their place, deliver an in-service for their staff. So those are opportunities there from a fitness standpoint. And just correct me if I'm wrong. Are you guys still hearing me? You guys just froze.
I can still hear you, yeah.
Okay, all right. And then you get into business community. We're highly involved in the Chamber of Commerce. I can't emphasize that enough. It gets us privy to information that other people aren't in tune with. It gets us access to certain things. I can tell you right now, John knows how hard it is down in Bethesda, but permitting in Montgomery County is a zoo. And if I wasn't a member of the Chamber of Commerce, we would not be in this facility right now because our papers were getting lost. They got wrongly classified. And all I had to do was reach out to the Chamber of Commerce, and I got the cell phone for the permitting services head. And right when that happened, things moved very, very quickly, but we still ended up getting delayed for 3 to 4 months. But the Chamber of Commerce is huge. Go be involved. You'd be shocked at how few health, fitness, medical professionals are even involved in the chamber. So to be quite honest, it's like a blue ocean with regards to you going in there, developing top of mind awareness. It's not like your local real estate or insurance professionals where there's 18 of them and they're just literally carving each other up and hunting for scraps in the Chamber of Commerce. And then from a medical standpoint, you know, every now and then, are we going to do a lunch? For sure. When we get, you know, the opportunity where somebody is being responsive to a patient and saying, hey, what are they doing over there? They are doing a really good job. And you get some kind of compliment or some kind of dialogue that isn't just me sending over a progress note or initial eval that gets signed. Those are opportunities for us to go in and really develop some kind of authentic or meaningful relationship. So some of the old school stuff does work. Ideally, you get to a point right now, we've got physicians from the area and they're on cell phone basis. We can text them. They're getting right back to us. I view that a lot more of on a synergistic or a level playing field in terms of what we've done to focus on those relationships. Not to say that lunches are the only thing. I mean, it's so small as just writing notes in, you know, our little WebPT progress note. Hey, would love to get on a call to discuss this after you do your brief findings. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes they're like, oh, perfect. And they shoot you a text and you get on a call and that's it. But those are the 5 different areas I could deep dive. And we have a full, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about systems later, but we have a full like marketing manual where it tells you how to go into certain environments, what you need to do to set up, you know, what type of things are you thinking about? What are you supposed to get from that environment? So there's a lot more to deep dive, but that was kind of a superficial picture of each of those 5 different areas.
Well, and I think every geographic area comes with its own challenges. You know, down in Southern Maryland, I would always hear it, oh, people in Bethesda or Rockville, they got it easy. There's so many people up there and, you know, they've got expendable income. But if you look at some of the strategies you mentioned, like going to a high school and speaking has a compounding effect. There's going to be some youth coach there. There's going to be some lady who wants to get in shape. And they're going to come up to you at the end and they're going to ask, hey, that seemed really cool. Like, what else can you do for me? So you go and you do a fitness thing at a gym, and that same lady, that's the same place that she works out at. And she sees you again. And it's another, oh, hey, Josh, it's good to see you again. It's one of those things where that trust starts to build and compound on one another. And you start to see that really, really start the ball rolling. Even if you're in like rural Oklahoma, like it's still something, it's a principle that's going to continue to work.
Good faith and carving out time out of your day is something that is some people value and some people don't value. It automatically gets you on a level playing field. And I think good faith does build advocacy and ambassadors quicker than anything. If you want people to go crazy about your business, show how connected you are to community and to other people beyond just delivering your service.
Yeah, I agree. I want to pivot a little bit here and go into staff development before we go into, you know, kind of more recent events. One thing, you know, I've made it pretty clear to everybody. ClinicalAthlete has been a huge game changer for me. Education wise, it exposed my own biases and really kind of challenged me professionally. But one of the things that I hear really frequently from professionals is like working a full-time schedule and then, you know, I just don't have time to go about those things. And a lot of clinics, I've worked in some myself, they don't really set aside time. You mentioned you have a Tuesday at noon in service pretty much every week. How do you foster continuing education and staff development in your staff? Because like you mentioned, I mean, Jared is incredible. Most of your staff that I've interacted with, you had a group come out to White Plains and take my powerlifting course last year, and they were excellent people. You know, how do you foster that in your staff and continue that trend forward?
Admittedly, some of it's recruiting. I mean, if you recruit the right people, some people that automatically are valuing the same things you're valuing, it does make it much easier. But then when you talk about when they're with you, it is a conversation from day one. What do you like? What do you want your niche to be? Okay. What are you good at? What are you not good at? And that's stuff that we will revisit every year. And to be quite honest, almost every single quarter with regards to, hey, are you getting towards your goals? Are you working towards your, I mean, I can think of, I'm going to call out like Paula right now. She's our new director of our concussion program at Rehab to Perform. And it is something that we're just having regular conversations with her with regards to connecting with other people, putting her in a situation where she is engaging in certain environments, doing stuff in-house to develop everybody else, but ideally some kind of structure and plan in place. If somebody's going to go do Con Ed, mandatory, they have to, within the next few weeks, barring the schedule, they're delivering an in-service to the rest of the staff during that 12 o'clock time period. When you have interns too, which we regularly have DPT interns and college interns with us, it definitely becomes something where I think everybody out of necessity is continually sharpening their saw. Every single one of them, before they're done, regardless of college or DPT, has to deliver an in-service. So there's continued conversations towards preparing them. And then, I mean, this is a perfect time to tell it. We just got approved to be a developing residency. So this summer, we will take our first clinical resident. So education is something that you can both have systems in place for it that are, you know, maybe formal or maybe informal. It can be done as a part of recruiting, but ideally, like our marketing approach, it is multifaceted, and it's something where you're putting it out in front of people regularly. I think I'm a big believer that people are only going to do what they see some of their higher ups, quote unquote, and I hate using that, but some of the more tenured people in our company are extremely passionate about learning. So everybody else just kind of goes, hey, this is how we do things here. And then it's easier when I've got, you know, people like Zach Baker, like putting himself out there, Anthony doing stuff similar, Mike, Jared has been a byproduct of us, Jamie, who now is going to be a level up mentor with Zach and the group there. So people are now trying to get out into that space more and develop their own niches. Really just becomes hey, this is how we take care. Are you comfortable with doing things the way that everybody else is doing it?
Josh, you broke up pretty big there. I think I got most of that. You guys hear most of that, Jared and Quinn?
Did I get a lag there?
Yeah, quite a bit, like towards the end. But I think it went pretty well.
All right, sorry.
Oh, there you go. Now it's back. So
I think that was me. Okay. No, just getting back. Yeah, no, it was. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish anything you had to say.
No, I was just saying, I mean, I think, you know, the team reflects leadership. And when you have people that have been with the company for longer periods of time, they're in certain roles like a site director or something like that, and they're making their own personal development a priority, it's very, very easy for younger clinicians, some of these people that are very, very hungry, to just kind of come into the culture of the team. This is the culture. This is how we do things here. And it's very easy for them to see it or start to ask questions about how some people that have been doing it for longer are incorporating it in their routine as well. And it just becomes a continued conversation. You know, it's something I feel is allowing us to ideally get better every single year, where we get into some of these business metrics. You know, you could look at net promoter score, you could look at outcome measures, you could look at readmission rates, some of these different things that we're able to have access to, whether or not it's WebPT or some of the various insurance companies, but you're seeing your numbers improve every single year.
Well, and when you look at a lot of this, when it comes to staff development, that sort of thing, it's expectation setting. You know, you mentioned your senior staff members or people who've been around a lot longer. If you can set the expectation that this is what we do, then most people are going to follow that. If the expectation's not set, or you don't set expectations well, especially, I like how you kind of touch on, we have constant conversations about this. I mean, a lot of people avoid those. Let's be honest. Like, they just, oh, you know, they'll get it done. Oh, it'll be okay. Well, give them another month. No, like I need this done. I need it done now. And having that conversation early, not in the last hours of a deadline or something like that, it sets up people for so much more success. So I want to transition a little bit. Jared had a great question that he had added to our little flow here, just about, building a profitable practice and staying within some ethical guidelines. So Jared, you want to pop in real quick and ask your question? I think it's a great one.
Yeah. I actually haven't looked at that document in a while, but I think I can remember the gist of it off the top of my head. Josh, I've worked in a couple of clinics and I've done a few rotations in other clinics, and I think I've seen things done very poorly from what I would call an ethical or moral standpoint, where it's probably pretty profitable, where the metrics look pretty good, but from my perspective as a clinician, I don't think that the owners or the individual clinicians are doing a good job of doing their best to serve their clientele. I think they're doing a good job of serving themselves through their clientele, but I don't think that they're really acting in a way that puts the client's interests at the forefront. Now, that said, I definitely think, and can point to examples like Rehab to Perform, that you can do both. You can have a profitable business and still make sure that your client's interests are first and foremost, because I think people can sniff out the BS real fast. On the flip side of that, if they recognize that you as a clinician or you as a company really care about them, they're going to respect that, value that, and give you more of their business. So my question is, how do you go about setting up maybe a company culture and the systems around that really serve your clients as best as possible, while still making sure that you make enough to pay your staff and keep the lights on?
I mean, I think if I had to reference just one book right out of the gates, it'd probably be Conscious Capitalism. I think that book just has so many just quick hitting takeaways that really frame up where we could probably take almost this entire discussion. But I think really, if we just start at just the model alone, having something that's not the optimal business model and it's not the optimal service model. The optimal service model probably being something without time restrictions, somebody needing a shorter time, somebody needing a longer time. And then if you shifted the other end of the spectrum, you trying to cookie cutter everybody, and based on whatever is legal, you trying to get as many people in the doors, and based on what is legal, you trying to bill as much as possible. Finding a sweet spot has always been our goal. So in the state of Maryland, we can't see more than 3 people an hour. So for us, we see 2 people an hour. Realizing we need repeatable ways of scheduling and doing things for the people that we're serving, putting them in a situation where you're getting about 25 to 30 minutes of that one-on-one time, and then you are having something that's written on a whiteboard or described to you, communicated to you, that you're doing in a circuit fashion to finish up. So you still being in the line of sight of your PT, being in a situation where you can still ask questions, but having that true one-on-one time before getting into an environment where I would say you're almost developing some kind of independence and mental and physical resilience during that time. So I think the halfway between the business and service is really where it all starts. And then I think a lot of places really don't get into true quality control metrics. And that allows us to actually make sure, are we delivering what we're saying we're doing? And I think, and it's not to like take shots at people that are like, oh, hey, this is great, this is the best model, we see people an hour. Like, what makes an hour the best model? And how do I know that even in that hour you're actually developing or delivering good care? Just because you deliver an hour of care doesn't necessarily mean it's better care. There could be people that are better in 30 minutes, better in 45 minutes. Without any kind of quality control metrics, it's very, very hard to really paint an accurate picture and say, hey, we're actually delivering a higher standard of care. So that's where we get into things, like your outcome measures, some of the things that we have access to in WebPT, Net Promoter Score being a huge thing. If you just look at things like, average number of visits per person, that could be the other end of the spectrum where, hey, are we getting people better to where they need to be in a shorter time period. But that's something you're going to more have as what I would consider like holistic KPIs or key performance indicators. So the model itself, and then having things that are actually able to be changed based on information that is coming to us. And I'm not saying that metrics are the end all be all, but you have to have something measurable. It's a lot like return to sport testing. Is it perfect? No. But ideally, we have as many different touch points as we can to tell us that we're doing at least a lot of the right things. And then if we modify certain variables, can we get to a point where there's something positive that happens there?
Jared, you got any follow-up to that?
Maybe one. Have you had anybody on staff or talked to clinicians who may share a problem that I think I have and have had for a while, being able to sell themselves and their services and accurately describe how what they provide or what we provide can really benefit the client, but in a way that still very clearly communicates that the client's best interests and their wishes for themselves are at the forefront of everything?
Yes. I mean, I don't know about you all. I feel like this is a huge problem just in our industry. We have physicians who people will literally do whatever the physician says, right? Take it without any kind of questioning at all, right? And then we have personal trainers that crush people with sales. Super, super, super salesy. And here we are in the middle, and we're not too comfortable, like clearly communicating expertise with any kind of real conviction, and we're not that comfortable selling the value of what it is that we do. So yes, absolutely. I'll be honest. I mean, the people that we've had and that have done a better job when it comes to onboarding to what we're trying to accomplish quicker are typically people with a personal training background. They're people who've had to hunt and fight to get clients and retain clients. So the sales piece, and really, you know, you can get away from the S word if that's how you view it, because I think a lot of people view sales as just being something that there's a negative connotation to. You're not selling them on anything except for exceptional outcomes. And when you just change the narrative and you say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish, you are giving them a picture of what they are going to expect or what benefit that they're going to have as a result of a full plan of care, which is always what we're trying to have a conversation about. It's not about just having everybody come in and go, hey, we're going to see you 3 times a week for 4 weeks. It's about saying, hey, here's where you're at, here's what you're thinking, paint the picture for them, forecast for them. This is what we found today. This is what we would like to see. In this particular situation, these qualities are what we'd like to own before we transition you to here. So ideally, putting yourself in a situation where you are just painting a picture of what they should expect that graduation day, as we like to put it, and it making the sales piece that much easier, because you're not selling on them coming to visit 2, visit 3, visit 4. You're selling them on the equal goal that ideally you and that person have communicated. And now
you disappeared. Uh-oh.
Did we lose him?
I think we might have lost him.
Oh, that's okay.
Ideally, they're in a situation where they're choosing to come to you and they have goals that you're mutually working on with them.
Josh, can you hear me?
Yes.
So a question to dovetail to that, because before we shift over to now kind of how, so this is, you know, all of this has been how you've built things up to this point, and have there been things that have had to have been pivoted a little bit based on the current situation, but also maybe things that you think can be cleaned up moving forward to make your model even stronger. But I wanted to just touch on this question here real quick, because I think we're on it and you've probably answered it 2 or 3 times now. But how do you not make metrics overly quote unquote corporate for the physios? Or said another way, how do you keep them from swinging the pendulum too far to only looking at the numbers and forgetting about the person? How do they strike that balance?
I think oftentimes, at least my familiarity, and you guys can chime in here, with metrics, is that the sole conversation is based on how much did you bill and how busy are you? And I could be wrong, but at least knowing a couple of people at some of the local pops places as well, the conversation is predominantly focused on the metrics that involve money. I don't see too often metrics associated with things like what I would consider brand loyalty and customer service experience, such as Net Promoter Score. And sorry, I'm moving again because for some reason the internet connection has been a little bit challenging. I'll see if this works. Did you guys hear that part? Good. Okay. So making the metrics more about the quality or the level of care, or how that would be something that is not as familiar. Making sure that, hey, churn rate is very, very important. If somebody does not come on for 3 visits, why didn't they come for 3 visits? What did we do to not communicate that value? So some of the processes that if you focus on will eventually lead to a plenty profitable business, but those are much more focused on what value, what connection, or what outcomes were had as a result of that person's care, instead of just billable units and how busy you were in terms of, your slots. We have 80 slots in a given week. I don't want people busy for 80 slots, and I really don't even want to talk about it that much. A byproduct of a good business and a good service will be being somebody busy plenty. So really changing the narrative or what we're focusing on with the metrics that we're looking at.
Well, and part of that comes down to, the system. One of the things I found in the clinic was any system implementation or metric implementation was looked at as way too businessy. And it's like, well, we're supposed to be here for people. Yes, but we still have to look at how well those people are being treated and the outcomes that we're getting from them and all those other things. And I think striking a balance there is vitally important. But I want to move on to now. So, we talked a little bit previously. What did you do when everything happened? I know Maryland, we were one of the more aggressive states when it came to shutting things down and getting people, the social distancing requirements were hit early for us. How did Rehab to Perform? How did you guys pivot? What did you do and what are you doing now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is really just gathering as much information as possible. And I remember drawing it up on a whiteboard and really just trying to make sure that we had as much information in 4 different areas as possible. One, obviously there's a huge social responsibility piece. That narrative is predominant in today's society. It's hugely important. We never want to be in a situation where we are compromising others as a result of our decision. It's one thing to have personal responsibility, but it's another thing to also recognize you have a responsibility for others. The aspect of following the rules. So in terms of following the rules, what is Department of Homeland Security putting out? What is Governor Hogan putting out? What is for, say, our different counties? Mark Elrick for Montgomery County put out different restrictions at one point. What is the Maryland APTA? Lori Jacobson with the Maryland APTA, the president there. I have been fortunate to have relationships with some of the local politicians. What information can I get from them on what rules are either getting implemented now or getting implemented in the future? Then you go to your people, you go to your team, you go to your community, and then you go to your family in terms of getting information from them, figuring out how they feel, ideally making this some kind of group thought. And then you have to go to the business. You have to incorporate where are we at business-wise, what can we accomplish, what do we have the ability to shift and do, what can we offer. So each of those 4 different areas presenting us with a situation where we're trying to do everything that we can possibly do to continue to deliver a service, both through in-person and through telehealth, do things in a manner that follow the rules, do things in a manner that are taking care of the people that we're interacting with and the people that we're interacting with are going to interact with, and then take care of the people that are in here. I told people in the beginning, you are not going to agree with every single thing that gets done over the course of the next weeks and months, but together we are going to agree that the majority of people in our four walls and in our company are making decisions as to what we are doing. And once again, not everybody is agreeing at all points, but we are where we are because of the majority and because of the group sharing and group thought at what we can deliver with regards to making sure that we're taking care of each of those four different buckets. Telehealth thing, honestly, we have a very agile team. We got it done within 24 hours with people at WebPT, them recommending physio. We worked on it together, created a Google Drive, a bunch of different people doing different things, and we all came up with a document that was not only for the clinical staff, but for the clerical staff, and then relaying information back to
We lost you again, Josh.
And I think that was physio. Is it physio track? Or is
Am I
physio
losing you
track?
guys again?
Yeah, we
No.
lost you right after the WebPT recommendation. They said physio.
Yeah, we got physio, and that's been pretty good. It got a little bit overwhelmed at one point, but you know, it's been pretty solid ever since then. We've had to use Zoom every now and then, but very little. But yeah, I mean, other than that, just making sure that we're not only following guidelines, but ideally getting ahead of guidelines through certain relationships, whether it's Chamber of Commerce or through local politicians. We've been able to get ahead of some of the things that have come out. So putting ourselves in a situation where we're able to take care of each of those four different areas has been a group project, but one that, you know, much like any high functioning business, we're very agile. We're able to make things happen quickly. And there's never really been a situation where we felt like we've been doing anything really that less than our best or doing anything where, you know, majority of the people aren't agreeing with the direction that we're moving things in.
Josh, do you think that you guys will keep the telehealth piece even after this all blows over as another facet of your model?
We will, but I mean, admittedly, like, let's be honest, telehealth pays shit. Like, you know, it's not something that you're doing that's going to be a majority of what you do. Anybody that's able to run a very, like, profitable and prominent telehealth operation, my hat's off to you. You're definitely not functioning in an insurance model like we are, but it's something that we've definitely thought about with regards to vacations, work trips, people that get sick on a given day, offering it as an option. If you have your college athletes from the summer that are going back to college and mom and dad want you to check in with them while they're at school, that's a very, very easy conversation. It is a value add. I do think you're able to offer a lot more value than maybe the insurance companies would agree that we're able to offer at this given point. But for people, you know, saying that, you know, telehealth's amazing and that it's the next big thing and stuff, I still say, you know, pump the brakes a little bit. I think it's going to be awesome when we do have stuff like the PT Compact, where you're able to interact and deliver care to people in a variety of different states. So companies that have built a significant brand and being able to kind of function across those state lines, I think it's going to be awesome. But our bread and butter at the end of the day will always be the brick and mortar.
Have you found with reimbursements for the telehealth that it's declined or just not getting a lot of return?
For most of them, it's declined, and they have caps on the amount of time or you can bill people. So they've restricted certain CPT codes. Some of them you didn't have initial evals at one point, so you couldn't bring anybody that's new. Medicare, which typically, honestly, is a better payer. You know, you can work with somebody for 21 to 30 minutes on a given week, and they're paying you like $32. Like it's almost insulting. So we are not doing it for anything other than to stop the bleeding. Honestly, from a business standpoint, where we're probably hitting 40 to 60% of our, you know, typical revenue, which obviously is not going to keep the lights on if we have to keep doing this. but putting ourselves in a situation where we're still able to connect with people during a time of uncertainty, during a time where people's routines are drastically disrupted. And we're
He's all fired up too. Look at him.
I know he's probably saying some really good stuff right now.
I know he just dropped every nugget of gold.
conversation. I know Quinn's laughing at me now, but like, it's just,
No, I'm not. I couldn't hear you. You cut out on us.
oh God.
And you looked so fired up. It was like, it's going to be so good.
All right.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. I didn't even hear what you said. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, no, I mean, this has become such I guess if I look at PT, I look at us, like, we're a quality of life service. We're a quality of life company. And when you talk about what we're doing for people right now with telehealth, it's tremendously valuable. It's providing connectivity to people that are feeling more disconnected than they've ever been. Their routine's been disrupted. You have people who are alone, who are literally staying in their house all day and have nothing to do or nobody to interact with. We literally, honestly, have had to create a mental health resources page because we've had a couple mental health episodes in the clinic. So for us, the connectivity of stuff like this goes far beyond us just taking somebody through, movement progressions, working towards prerequisites and whatever their physical goals were at this given time. So I think the telehealth thing is just something that, ideally, does it get reimbursed more? Absolutely. Do we get more research to support the outcomes? For sure. But for right now, it's way more, once again, about the people and the connectivity than anything.
Well, it's still about establishing that personal connection. I mean, we can all attest to the power of personal connection. And you're right. We kind of talked about it with metrics before. There's not enough data. All of this is still so new. Then when it comes to insurance reimbursement, they don't have enough data to say, okay, this is the actual outcome. It's equal to, or this percentage less than what 30 visits would be in clinic. They don't have that to measure against. So it's understandable why the insurance companies would probably reimburse less. It's just tough because we know it is still valuable to people.
In the beginning here, Josh, I launched a poll, and we've got about 3/4 of the room in here were at least associated with the brick and mortar before all this went down, and probably quite a few of them either owned it or were highly vested in that place. So they're going to go, and then 3/4 of those people said, yeah, we're going back to this if they're not, still kind of in it in some capacity. So my question to you is has this situation brought about ideas of how to, quote unquote, and I hate the term, but more bulletproof things? Or are you like, honestly, this is such a random occurrence in history, it's probably one of those once in a lifetime things, and we were killing it before and we're going to keep just killing it after? Or has it made you stop and pause and say this needs to be cleaned up going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I just did a presentation with the Chamber of Commerce yesterday, stuff that we've been focusing on, 4 areas. How do you improve your craft? How do you improve things on a clerical level? How do you improve your tie to community? And how do you improve culture? And we've been trying to actively improve areas in each of those 4 umbrellas. But to be quite honest, that's no different than we would be doing anyway. So if anything, we have a different context that we're working out of right now, and it's showing us certain things and maybe exposing certain things that we've never been exposed to. But at the end of the day, our team has always been about both individual and group development. So I don't think that it's doing anything less than maybe providing us with some insight into different areas that maybe we wouldn't have focused on right now, but it's kind of afforded us, there's planned growth and planned learning, and then there's forced learning. We're in a situation where we're forcibly learning and then also choosing to learn, more of in this hybrid. Whereas before, we're just choosing what we want to improve upon. So we're still working on certain things. We're still working for a better future. I'm fully under the awareness that we're probably going to run into a situation where this fall there might be a kickstart of this whole thing again. So do we need to prepare ourselves certain ways to prepare, the business for fall, where we might be getting some normalcy back in the summer, and then we're dropping back down again to whatever it is that we're in right now? That's a very real possibility. I hope not. I hope we're adequately prepared on a societal level at that point, but you really never know. But at the end of the day, I am looking forward to some level of normalcy. We know who we are. We know what we need to work on. And ideally, yeah, when they start peeling back layers here in Maryland or in the counties in which we work on, we're going to be ready to hit the gas. And to be quite honest, I mean, you don't get into the comparison game a whole lot, but I know who I want to take notice of what we're doing. And that's the people that aren't doing things the way that we would like to be doing. They are the big places that have gone into PE that really don't, I think, deliver tremendous quality, and maybe, would be termed some of the mill operations. But, that's the game that we're in. Those are the people that we're going after. That's what we want to disrupt. And we want to create a situation where our business is creating an absolute new standard in whatever community we're in, so that those places are having to turn their head. So that's the only thing that I would say that we're focused on as a team, and the direction that we're going in when things start to peel back here.
I'll tell you what, one theme that from the beginning and through this that I'm starting to pick up is, if you're a business right now that is struggling or trying to figure this stuff out, work on your foundation or build off the foundation you have. We mentioned the team aspect and how involved you have your staff and the expectations that you set, and it set you in a good path or a great foundation when this actually hit. This was unprecedented. It's going to rattle everybody's cage. But it really seems like you said, 24 hours and you guys had something up and running, and you had a strategy going that was at least agile and malleable enough to fit the situation. And you continue to do those same things. If you feel as though your business is struggling in this particular area, work on that foundation. Work on the people. Figure those things out and find those holes and fill those holes. Would you agree?
I agree. And, on that note, yeah, we have a lot more downtime in the office for some people. So how do you give them projects? How can they work on themselves? How can they work on things for the team? What can you put on their plate that gives them a sense of purpose and fulfillment when in all normal times, they're going to be spending time with clients? So we have people on our team that are either involved in every single one of our lives that we're doing on Facebook and Instagram for our community, or I should say, or they're doing things behind the scenes that allow them to work on concussion or return to sport or residency. So, I'm sorry, a lot of talking today. But ideally, giving them a sense of fulfillment and things that they're building that when things get back to normal, they're going to be highly, highly valuable. We have people working on email drip campaigns that are by diagnosis code, so that when we work throughout the rest of this year, anybody who gets low back pain, anybody who gets ACL initial encounter, anybody who gets concussion, or a wide variety of other diagnosis codes, get very, very specific information that gets dripped to them that goes way beyond that in-person session. So how can you come up with creative ways, pull stuff from other industries, and ideally put your team in the driver's seat to work on some of those things, to put your business not to where the rest of the PT places are right now, but what are the best business practices of any industry? Look to other people, look to other business leaders, look to other industries, pull stuff and absorb it into what you have. Your people are going to love being a part of that. It's exciting doing things that are progressive. And I think that's why people got on the telehealth, bandwagon the way that they did. Like doing new stuff and things that are viewed to be progressive often excite people. We don't like doing things that are monotonous. We don't like doing things that look like they're dated. Giving people, especially young clinicians that have heard so many negative things about entering the workforce, giving them some things to work on and make them feel like they're part of the team growth, that's so important. And I can't emphasize that enough with regards to making sure that you have people that are engaged in the company and automatically are going to deliver a better service as a result of their engagement.
So we're getting a couple questions coming through the Q&A here. One thing that I kind of want to ask outside of staff development is, when it comes to a relapse, say this does happen in the fall here again, how else are you preparing? You know, they ask directly besides increasing monetary saving and reducing investments, but like what other strategies are you taking to be a little bit more proactive just in case this thing comes in the fall?
I'll be honest. I mean, I think for our situation, that's a tough question, because then you just get into the whole conversation about, all right, are we going to stay open again? Yes, we're going to stay open again. Be fully transparent. So then what type of people are falling under a category in which they need physical therapy services? For us, a lot of post-op, a lot of workers' comp. So how do you diversify some of your potential referral sources in situations where you are working with people that have a high level of need? Post-op always being something that's challenging for PT places not associated with a hospital, not associated with a physician group. And then how do you get into workers' comp situations a little bit more where, yeah, we see a lot of fire and police. I'd love to see more fire, police, and SWAT, some of the first responders that are out there. So how do we deeper entrench those relationships to make sure that you're in a situation where the well is not going completely dry? Because we have been hit a ton with what's going on right now. But at the end of the day, still providing a service, still having value, still having this small piece in the greater ecosystem of our local community. But that's going to require us to diversify relationships, diversify our community ties. And then you get into other things like, okay, maybe the PT compact does pass. Maybe Maryland is finally included in the PT compact. Can we do other things with regards to telehealth? I think there are going to be some opportunities there. We have an R2P Plus program that's a discharge wellness program for everybody that graduates from us. So how do we build those out in the next couple months to make something that's easier to deliver, easier to sell, so people don't feel like they have to sell quite as much. So I do think there are opportunities there. But for us, at the end of the day, I mean, everything's still going to come back to, doing a SWOT analysis. How do we handle this? How do we get through this? What does the team view as an opportunity? It's so much more than just me when we have these conversations. So whatever we come up with will most likely be a result of, that group share, that group thought that I mentioned earlier.
Quinn, Jared, do you guys have anything else? Any other questions here?
I don't. I think this has been fantastic. I think it's been different than the other episodes that we've had up to this point, where you're in a slightly different setting and you know that you want to maintain that and get through this and be there again and even stronger. And I think that this was a fresh, real perspective from somebody who's been affected by this but is fighting back. So thank you for this.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. You guys just so many good things. I'll be fully transparent. We talk about community. I haven't done as good of a job at interacting professionally, so it is something that I'm more conscious of. Obviously getting our team to have access to ClinicalAthlete was a huge part of that, to make sure our team is equally as involved. But I'm going to do my best to be more professionally engaged moving forward.
Well, yeah. I think after listening to this, there's going to be a lot of colleagues and people in our community that are going to be looking to you for some guidance too. So whether you want to or not, there it is. It's coming.
I don't mind it. I appreciate the opportunity just to be able to pass stuff on. I mean, I wouldn't be here without certain programs that I've gone through, without certain mentors I've had. So just the ability to pay it forward and ideally be the push or the hand up that somebody needs, that means a lot.
Absolutely.
Jared?
I'm just going to say, I don't have anything else to ask you, Josh. I've been looking forward to this for a while. It's been coming down the pipeline for a bit as we've sort of coordinated things, especially because, as someone who I know through ClinicalAthlete, I talked about being privy to certain business practices or, people who I don't think are doing a great job. I think I was reflecting on it. One of the reasons why I was looking forward to this so much is because knowing you in the capacity that I do, there's an inherent trust. I know what you're about. I know what R2P is about. And it's something that I think we need more of. So appreciative of your time, man. And looking forward to a lot more people picking up these nuggets and starting to implement them themselves.
Thanks, Jerry. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
So, hey, Josh, I've held on to this one question for the entire thing. It's the first one that came through, and I want to tee you up to let you kind of go out on a crescendo because you know
All right.
you're my boy. You're from Maryland, even though you're a Buckeye. I almost canceled the interview right at that point. Hey, Penn Stater right here. Okay, just keep that. We'll keep that rivalry alive.
My parents are Penn Staters.
You did what?
My dad played football for Jopa, man.
Oh, man.
Yep.
That's wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
so go out strong, right? And let you get out strong. Do you have any tips for how someone can build a trusting reputation in the business?
I think everything just starts with relationships. I mean, if I look at just what we've done with regards to our local community, investing in people, not focusing on selling, finding a way that you can help people. How can you help people with their problems? How can you go deliver value where they're at? How can you step in their environment and actively engage with it without expecting anything in return? I think a lot of that just comes down to what makes you tick as a person. You know, are you somebody who's more motivated by your purpose, or are you motivated by money? It's okay to care about finances. It's okay to care about things like money, but what truly fills your cup up? And I think the more that you are reflective of yourself, and you're a first, and then go be your best self for others in the community and the world that's around you, I think that's your best way for people to authentically, appreciate everything that you have to offer, and then they're going to want to hear about your business or what you're good at. But I think changing the focus, changing the narrative, but some of the things that we hear about all the time, investing in yourself and investing in others, don't have to be mutually exclusive of one another, and finding opportunities where you're investing in people in the community, that people that are not on your team, but at the end of the day, they are on your team. I think that's your best place to set a foundation for success.
That's awesome, man. I want to thank you a lot for coming on. I appreciate this. You absolutely crushed it, and we'll talk soon.
Real quick.
Thanks for making time for me.
Josh, where can people already know, just Rehab to Perform, but where can they connect with you? Go to the website, Instagram?
I'm going to give my phone number because honestly, I am way better on text and calls than I am on any.
Whoa.
Is that cool?
All right. Yeah, it's fine with me. I'm going to
build in relationships.
Yeah.
I like talking on the phone, man.
Just giving them honestly, digits.
Yeah. 301-467-8757. If you want to talk, shoot me a text with your availability, and I will happily get on the phone with you. But if you shoot me long-winded emails, long-winded text messages, or long DMs, the likelihood of me getting back to you gets less and less and less. I will shoot you a response that says, hey, text me your availability. I just like talking.
What was that again? 301?
467.
467?
8757.
8757. Done.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Talk soon.